Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to my favorite day of the season. It is the playoffs for WCS North American Challenger. My name is Fear Dragon. I'm going to be joined here today by good old Cats, and we're going to have some NA memes today. How you doing today, man?
I'm doing great, man. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. I can tell that you're doing great because I'm actually, can't see it on camera, but you're wearing like the most spectacular pants I've ever seen. They're on brand. They're literally Cats.
Oh,
There you go.
They're pretty cool.
I'm already making you do the aerobics and stuff, getting you into that exercise, get the adrenaline pumping.
Last time we casted together, Ravi was bringing up how my nipples are visible on through my shirt. So now it's the pants.
If you imagine hard enough, you can see them.
Yeah.
All right, guys. So if you're not familiar with WCS NA Challenger, it's the same as WCS EU Challenger. In fact, it is 16 players that manage to qualify into the event. We've made it well past that stage, though. All of the groups get played out where 2 players advance from each one of the 4 groups. And with that, we generate a single elimination 8-player bracket. Very simple, no more second chances. And of course, with these single elimination 8-player brackets, the first match, all of the round of 8 matches do mean that you're also in a great position where if you win one single match, you are going to get your flight, your hotel, all accommodations and everything, and also a seed into Group Stage 3 at WCS Fall. So it's a very, very important match for all of these players now. And of course, you take a look, they are also going to be competing for an awesome prize pool of about $10,000 for each one of the regions, Europe and North America. You guys can see over here, $1,600 to first place. WCS points are going to help with that seeding at WCS Fall, and any other WCS events are going to be participating in, giving them slightly easier brackets. And all the players that got knocked out already managed to get well, right? $400.
Like for the end of the year tournament too, BlizzCon, that's big points.
Yeah.
Big points.
I mean, we're getting down to the wire on that. We're getting so close where there's not going to be any more opportunities to earn points. So it may not seem like, oh, well, these are smaller number of points than the big WCS Premier events, but you'd be surprised how many times you have tie situations for people trying to get to BlizzCon.
Yeah, just even 50 points can make the difference. Hell, 1 point could make the difference.
1 point literally could make the difference, but I don't know. I don't actually know that is there a single event that you can earn a single WCS point in? I'm not actually sure there is.
I don't think so, no.
Yeah. Well, either way, guys, let's take a look at our wonderful bracket that we're going to be jumping into in just a little bit. Our first match. Oh, my God. Cats, you know what? Just let me monologue for this for a little bit. I'm going to set the stage on each of these matches, okay?
Okay.
JonSnow versus Neeb. Possibly the most repeated match that exists in the North American scene. This match has probably happened more times than Huck versus Idra, because these guys literally face each other every single season, and JonSnow has never beaten Neeb outside of the one time, the very first time they face each other, back when Neeb played Terran years ago.
Whoa.
He has lost every single time, but every single time I hold a little hope that he can change things. Then we got Future versus Puck. This is also going to be a really fun one. I know you were actually really excited for this one, Cats, but this is always just a really scrappy, crazy kind of series. These guys never just have a super clean, normal series. There's always some shenanigans.
They are shenanigans players.
The following match is going to be a Terran versus Terran between Epic and Masa. I think Masa, for a lot of people, when you don't include special or something, a lot of people have traditionally considered Masa to be one of the top, if not the top, North American Terran player. And Epic has actually been on the rise lately, the past couple of months. So this is going to be a little bit of that new versus old school. Epic has been around for a while, but should be a fun one. And then following that up, we're going to have Estrella versus Scarlet. Both of these players actually lived with each other in Korea for a while. They consider each other friends.
They still do right now.
They do. They actually talk with each other a lot. Actually, funny enough, I believe that both of them are now in Canada because Estrella is actually getting ready for WCS Montreal and everything. So he's in Montreal.
I thought they were both in Korea, actually. I checked a couple of days ago.
I asked Estrella, and he said he was in Montreal.
Oh, okay.
But Scarlet may still be in Korea right now. But either way, it's going to be a really fun match with a lot of mind games. I'm just so excited about today's stuff.
It should be great.
There's one other thing I'm excited about, Paulo.
What is it?
It's the wonderful skins available through the war chest. And if you guys are interested, we're of course going to be showcasing a bunch of these skins, both in the games as well as also in this little graphic right over here, and highlighting some of the coolest skins that we have available. But if you guys are interested, the war chest is available. In fact, if you actually click right around over here, there should be a little button that says StarCraft 2 War Chest. If you click on that, you can actually both purchase the War Chest through that link, and actually you can do that on a lot of other StarCraft streams as well. And while you're watching, right around here-ish, I think, if my memory serves me correct, there's going to be a little Claim EXP button once you've purchased the War Chest. That's going to allow you to unlock all these wonderful skins over here just through watching StarCraft. You don't even have to go through the ladder anxiety if you're one of those players of playing the game to unlock them anymore. You just get it through watching StarCraft. Isn't that amazing, Paulo?
It is fantastic, and there's some a few free ones as well. So it's not like, yeah, you can get a good sample of some classic skins, and that should be pretty great too.
Yeah.
Ain't gotta pay for those.
Yeah.
But if you like them, you should.
Absolutely. Well, ladies and gentlemen, already talked about this, but our first two players are getting ready and set up in our first lobby. JonSnow versus Neeb. Cats, what are your thoughts on this one?
Jonathan Snow, I talked to just recently, like a couple of days ago. I was trying to survey some players, and he said that Neeb looks beatable as of recently. So he feels like he stands a chance here as opposed to every other time. He said that he feels good about Zerg in this patch. And he said, if I had to describe this series in one word, I would say woke.
Woke.
Yes.
That is a pretty Jared JonSnow George answer. We're moving into our first map, ladies and gentlemen. Thunderbird is going to be the setting for this first epic battle. We are going to be jumping in to introduce the players in a moment's time. Neeb coming in off of that GSL versus the World tournament. We're going to see what kind of shape he's in as he faces off against this guy down here in the bottom right-hand corner of the map, the red Zerg player. Goes by the name of JonSnow. From Psystorm Gaming.
Yes, indeed.
Defeated, did you see that? Defeated a fire alarm in Season 2. Oh, God.
And playing for Ting, it is Mr. Neeb. That's my favorite chant at events. It's just, yeah.
Is it your favorite because
everyone does it, I feel like.
Okay, there's that. But do you hear about the confusion that originally happened in 2016 when people started doing that?
Do tell.
So at the event, everyone could hear very clearly. People were just chanting Neeb, right? On the stream, though, the way that the audience came through was it actually sounded to a lot of people like booing. So they thought they were booing Neeb.
Right.
And that was one of my favorite things just to witness, is listening to all of Reddit blow up. Having been at the event, I'm like, oh yeah, there's so much support for Neeb. And then you go to Reddit and it's like, why are people booing Neeb? I think he earned his spot here.
Yeah, he most definitely has.
Yeah.
One of the most, I want to say, intuitive players in the scene. One of the most talented players in the scene. He did good at GSL versus the World too, even beating his European counterpart Showtime. But yeah, I've talked to Neeb a bunch about his gameplay. For a long time, I think that he didn't even realize how brilliant he was. It's crazy to think, but that's how I perceived it. Oh,
yeah, there's two drones moving across the map over here, so this is definitely some shenanigans.
Oh, big mistake!
Oh, he actually manages to get a full surround for the most part on the Zell. He's gonna be able to take it out.
This is game.
He hasn't even lost any lings or drones here.
Yeah, you gotta avoid fighting those probes, unless that's not very many probes, but you gotta wait for those extra lings here. Okay.
Another Zealot is out.
No, you don't want to fight the Zealot. You don't want to fight the Zealot, I think. Jonathan Snow!
Yeah, this is suddenly going to not go quite as well. Two drones do go down. And I want to note, you don't see any probes that actually went down the left-hand side.
Yeah.
You lost a single probe.
Oh, man. This should have absolutely done it for JonSnow, in my opinion. I mean, you want to avoid those probes. You definitely don't want to fight the probes with the Zealot. Of course, you're in a timer because of the upcoming Adept. No. But if you don't get a surround, he got the surround right away on the Zealot. Now, usually there's just the one pylon that you take down and end the game. Neeb had 3 pylons, so he was super ready for this. As soon as this happens, he drops an extra pylon in case one of those pylons gets unpowered. But JonSnow definitely had the opportunity to kill some probes. Could have engaged earlier, certainly. Could have engaged with the extra 2 links that came out. And definitely could have gone inside the main instead of engaging against the Zealot and the probes on the low ground. So a little bit of a mishap, and this is going to be very hard to recover from.
Yeah, JonSnow clearly trying to play to the map, because this is one of those maps, we've seen this a lot in all the ZVPs that we've witnessed, even yesterday, where Protoss players really want to wall off at that big wide ramp. It's a wider ramp than normally a Protoss player would have to deal with for just walling in their natural. But if you wall that in, you get to secure your third base as well. JonSnow tries to take advantage of that, And Neeb is just so prepared. Wow.
Yeah, and I mean, it's not a thing that every Protoss player does. In fact, I think that most often it is not this. And I say that because I think it's like JonSnow probably researched Neeb. He was saying that Neeb has been playing a lot, that he looks beatable. So I think that this was a prepared build for Neeb. Not, you know, you could also gamble and be like, okay, like 30% chance that a Protoss player does this, something like that. But all in all, heartbreaks. For JonSnow here.
Definitely not a good start for him, as he was already the underdog, not only in name recognition, but just in series history against Neeb. So this is not going to probably boost his confidence levels, but, you know, it seems like he's going to try and play the game out from here. This is a really, really tough place.
Yeah, you have to. On top of that, this wasn't even a normal, just early pull. It was an early pull that took 2 of his drones, right? Like, we're talking about like 15% of his economy or so at that point in time. So that's pretty relevant and very unfortunate for him. I'm not sure that he's going to be able to make much happen here, but let's see what he tries. He is going for the 3rd base. Again, this is a very macro-oriented map, Ravi, like you said, so let's see. Maybe he can stabilize.
All right, Queen does push back that Oracle pretty successfully. It seems like Neeb is going for the 2 Oracles, then Phoenix opening. We'll see if he ends up adding on a 3rd Oracle, but usually that Phoenix is going to be good for cleaning up some of the overlords around the map, keeping JonSnow in the dark, and I especially want to mention that just because when you go for these kind of openings and everything, JonSnow has to take a risk somehow, right? Either you're going to take an economic risk or you're going to try and take a risk with an all-in or something. And having an idea of what your opponent is doing is really, really nice for trying to make those informed decisions.
Absolutely. And that's also why JonSnow used the Overlord, but it didn't pay off. Like, he suicided an Overlord on top of it all. So that's an extra 100 resources gone very early on. I would have much rather seen him take blind chances here because, you know, like, you guessing correctly, even if you guess correctly, you're still behind. So if you're sacrificing the Overlord on top of that, it's going to be so difficult. So I would have just liked to see him, you know, cut as many corners as he can and hope for the best type thing.
Okay, well, we do actually have that 3rd Oracle that pops on out. Behind this, Neeb will, of course, transition into the typical Protoss play of Robo and the Twilight, adding on that Forge for the eventual +1 weapons. And that is something that I think Neeb has been both praised for and also somewhat criticized for, is that he tends to have a very typical way he likes to play, and he's very, very good at it. And I think that's what maybe JonSnow could try to exploit when we talk about taking risks, but 5 workers already killed. It's not always as easy as just as it sounds.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, the most success I ever found against Neeb was throwing curveballs at him and kind of throwing him off his game, you know, like, 12 pulls like JonSnow just tried, proxy hatches, that kind of thing can definitely go a long ways against him. Not to say that I beat him very often at all, but yeah, I think JonSnow is gonna have to get creative. Again, Neeb is the type of player I was saying earlier that he is extremely intuitive. Like, he doesn't always have the rationale available to his brilliance, but his brilliance is undeniable. So he makes all these decisions in game, and then when you talk to him, he doesn't remember them, or he doesn't know, you know. So that's why, like, coming up, Neeb had seemingly, like, I want to say, like, it seemed as if he had low self-confidence in his play, and he would always talk about how, like, oh, maybe just other people don't practice, and it's like, no, dude, you're just brilliant. but you would have to explain to him why he was so brilliant. Like some of his moves are just absurd, but he doesn't, you know, it's just normal to him. It's just how he thinks.
Oh, man. I could go on talking for hours about how smart and how amazing of a player Neeb is, but for now, we can just kind of watch it through his gameplay. He's adding on his big Gateway Flood. He's getting up his Warp Prism, and this very well could be the big move out from Neeb that tries to become a kill move. It's not exactly hyper committed, I think, since he is sitting on what? He's going to be sitting on like 7 gateways. He can, of course, continue to just probe up and everything, but this is a really tough attack for JonSnow to hold now. Yeah,
absolutely. On the bright side for JonSnow, he does have the tools available. The Hydras are a great choice. He did cut some corners there, right? Like, not going for roaches or anything like that. Like, had he gotten attacked in between, he would be as dead as it gets. So the fact that he cut those corners and went straight for Hydras, that means his damage output right off the bat against the attack is going to be very big. That means that sentries are not going to be as effective. If he can hold this high ground and Neeb overcommits, this could be the opportunity he's looking for. At the same time, charge slots are the last thing you want to see if you're JonSnow. So hopefully he is ready with Banelings, with or without speed. it doesn't really matter because the charge slots will charge the banelings anyway.
Yeah, a little bit tough because he's only got 4 banelings. I think when you were talking about having banelings ready, you're hoping for a few more than that.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, even those 4, if they connect onto everything, then that'll be enough. But we'll see if that is even a possibility for JonSnow. And Neeb is playing very cautiously too. Yeah. Just getting ready to take a 4th. You know, he's like, okay, you don't have a 4th, I'll just take my 4th and I'm ahead.
And that is giving JonSnow some extra time to morph in more of these banelings, but JonSnow is also just really focusing on unit production. He's focusing on staying alive versus the attack that Neeb has already abandoned out of, like you said. So this is going to be delaying some other stuff for JonSnow, but it seems like he finally has realized, okay, yeah, you're actually not coming in. Throws down the infestation pit, has his 4th base on the way.
Yes, and that is very important. I like that he took this base because with Hydras especially, he would really struggle to hold the low ground against charge slots. In an open field, you're not going to find those baneling connections. You're not going to find those chokes for them. So I like that he's going off to the side a little bit here because the bottom ground expansion would just not be defensible. Yeah,
kind of interesting that Neeb, he was really looking to try and make that big attack happen, but having pulled back, he's still actually not researching Storm, which... It's not the end of the world. He still does have a very scary army, but I do start to wonder when the Hydra count starts growing high enough, that's usually when you do want to
We might be there. This looks good for JonSnow if Neeb commits, quite honestly. I think you've made a great point because he doesn't not just have Storm, he also doesn't have any sort of AoE, right? Like he doesn't have Colossus, he doesn't have Disruptors. So he's going to have to look for a transition here. If he stays gateways essentially and this type of unit composition, JonSnow can very well capitalize.
JonSnow doing a good job moving his army around on creep, getting in position. Has to be a little bit careful. His army got split up, but the Baneling's coming in from behind, trying to get some connections. He does connect on a few of those Zealots. They are softened up, but not quite killed. JonSnow still got to make the defense happen here. And here are the rest
He can very easily do it, I think, with this. I didn't see the rest of the army. It's looking very good for JonSnow on the defense. A very impressive recovery here from him. Oh, no.
A few Zealots do get idled over there, and the Hydras are going to go over there to clean them up. A few more extra losses for Neeb. Neeb does have a 4th base behind this and a fleet beacon on the way, but again, no real AoE.
Yeah, and those Zealots could have done a lot more damage too. They could have probably killed like 5 to 10 workers had they not been idled. So very lucky for JonSnow, who had his army as far as it could be, as far as like the possible positions that you would ever want your army at. So a little bit of an oversight by Neeb, who is now just securing his late game transition, and he is a monster in the late game, of course.
Yeah.
But JonSnow's in it, which I didn't think this game would last 10 minutes.
Yeah, not just in it. I think he's in a good position, right? So it's really, I think, already a nice little surprise, especially after that start that you were talking about. So with the double Stargates finishing up, Neeb is most likely going to be doing what a lot of Protoss players have been trying to go into, which is very, very heavy on carriers. We'll see where things end up going from there. He's starting on another Cybernex core, I believe, so probably looking to get those double upgrades for the air.
Yeah, Storm being researched now finally. JonSnow keeping up on upgrades, even taking up to both Aspire and potentially to Infestors, as we see the pathogen glands being researched. So he's getting ready for this. He's comfortable with what he has. I don't expect he will attack. I don't think he should attack, given all the tech he's dropping. So
War Prism in the main base of JonSnow, while this army moves around on the left-hand side, trying to draw JonSnow out of position and successfully doing so. Oh, we're seeing JonSnow trying to come in with a big flank. The Banelings get really close in on a lot of those High Templars as well.
Yeah, unfortunately not finding the full connections, like 1 or 2 connect, but not enough to kill the clump of High Templars.
And JonSnow actually cleans up the War Prism in the main base. He's doing a good job with keeping a lot of these Banelings still alive, takes out the reinforcing Zealots, is cleaning up a lot of these Immortals. Is JonSnow doing it?
No, there's not enough Hydra's backbone as a backbone, but this was still a very good fight for JonSnow, I want to say, like given the tools that Neeb had already.
Yeah, a couple of these Immortals, Stutter stepping back, the hardened shields, keeping them alive just a tad bit longer. And like you were saying, JonSnow doesn't quite have the remaining Hydra backbone to keep things alive, but he cleaned up the War Prism harassment really, really well with just the reinforcements popping on out. Yeah. He took a really good trade, and he reset all the tech there for all the units, the expensive units there for Neeb, except for the carriers.
Yeah, and that's the big thing to talk about here is Neeb was transitioning, so that was a good opening for JonSnow to fight, both in terms of position where Neeb's army was, and in terms of finding him before this transition. Now it gets a little bit scarier, but the one saving grace is the High Templars all getting reset, like you said.
So a few more High Templars going to be warped in. Neeb, of course, does still have a pretty good economy. He didn't lose his base or anything, so he's still got a lot of gas income to afford some more of those, as well as getting up all those the carrier upgrades and everything. But
yeah,
what is JonSnow's plan from here? Because he got Pathogen Glands, he hasn't started any Infestors. He got up, I think, what was it, a Spire, but he hasn't started any Spire units.
Yeah, and that's why it's a little bit worrisome to take as much as he did. Like, he was doing the Infestors, Hive, Spire, and upgrades all at once while still trying to attack into Neeb. So I don't know what his plan is, because he is one base behind, and it seems like his plan is just ram stuff in. I don't think this will go well.
Good Bailey connection on a lot of these Zealots, but here come the carriers, and there are a decent number of them. Now, the Interceptors do come out a little bit slower here, but they also remake faster on the most recent patch, and you can see JonSnow is respecting this. He is backing up, but he did take a lot of losses there.
Yes, indeed. And I'm very curious to see how the new Infestors will work out. Oh, man, JonSnow starting the Infestors now, but they're not going to have enough energy for the Neural Parasite at all. And the Infested Terrans are not as good as they used to be as well post-patch. So it's a little bit scary. Lucky for him, Neeb backs away, because if Neeb had just pushed, he would have won the game right there. But yeah, I mean, now this is his plan. Get maxed on an army that can actually defeat Neebs and win an engagement convincingly. If he can do that, then the game will more or less reset. I don't think he can end the game off of it, but you know, if he can find the army that can trade with this, then he'll still be in it.
Yeah, it seems like Neeb did back off to wait for maybe +2 air weapons to finish up, because carriers do scale very, very quickly with those weapon upgrades. But these Zealot run-bys getting some good damage done and pulling JonSnow out of position. And I think that is part of the idea also, is that if you see too many units committed to that defense, then that's an opportunity to maybe move in, clean up some creep.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, that's exactly what Neeb is doing, just keeping things clean on his side of the map and moving towards JonSnow. I think we might see a little bit more of a committal here. He has the economy going for him, so trades, if they are even or slightly unfavorable for Neeb, that will be a good thing for him.
How many is too many Infestors?
That's difficult to say. Oh, these are good Neurals.
Yeah, neuraling not only the carriers, but actually a lot of the Archons as well to help try and clean up maybe some of those Interceptors. There are an absolute metric ton of Neurals right now, so he's cleaning up the ground force, but once those expire, the Infestors go down, and GG. Yeah,
the Infested Terrans were a little bit late. You want to use all your energy at that point in time. Yeah, like you want to burst through as fast as possible. The earlier you commit to having as much as possible in a fight, the better. That's why reinforcements are important. That's why people will reinforce with Zerglings, for example. A Zerg, even if it's not the most efficient unit to make, it's because it gets there faster, right? So I would have really liked for JonSnow to commit to an engagement where he found a very good opportunity to neural like half of the army of Neeb and capitalize on that amount of time.
Yeah, always a little bit tough. And I feel like it always seems very simple where you're like, oh, well, you click neural and then you click on the units. But there's a lot of extra little micro that you have to do after that. Getting out all the Infested Terrans, and then, of course, the unit that you neuraled is now no longer really a target for your unit. So it's like, do you kill that unit? Do you kill your opponent's units? When the neural's about to expire, are you re-neuraling? How are you keeping the Infestors safe? There's so much going on in that. And it did seem like Neeb kind of just had enough to steamroll them after. Yeah,
absolutely. Almost in every case, you want to kill your opponent's units and then, you know, kill what's remaining, because that's how you get rid of the most stuff possible. But yeah, like there is shift clicking, focus firing, right? Like you wanna use all those units to your advantage. Shift click through Neeb's carriers or even something else. Like what you prioritize is kind of tough because carriers don't really do damage to carriers.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean it was a tough one. I liked the effort by JonSnow. I feel like he has a chance if things don't start off with a failed 12 pull and
absolutely.
Two drones.
It was almost like the early game advantage kind of goes to Neeb there, but then the mid game, JonSnow really started making a lot of progress, and then it was the really late game situation that seemed like Neeb was just able to overcome. So yeah, if JonSnow is able to get a good start, maybe there is some hope over here.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that Neeb was always in a good position in that game, but JonSnow definitely, you know, if there was a win probability graph, it would have been pushed a little bit from like I am absolutely dead to maybe I can do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it looks like our next map is going to be Cyber Forest. Neeb currently leads up the best of 5, 1-0. He needs 2 more wins to advance onto that semifinals and get his, I would say, what a lot of people consider the rightful spot in that top 4, getting that seed to Montreal and everything.
Yeah, we'll see if JonSnow has something to say about that. He is... he doesn't know anything, knows nothing.
Yeah, you know, I would say he's at this point, can we say that he knows a little bit? Because he's like graduated from school. He's working a full-time job. He knows that he's matured at this point. He's not a kid anymore. No, it's been really cool to see JonSnow kind of making his way through the scene. Like I remember when he first came up, first season he qualified for Challenger was almost 5 years ago now or something. And he was just still in high school. He was just going into like college, university and everything, and still making all the StarCraft stuff happen. And now he's actually still competing with players like Neeb, looking good versus a player that's full-time, that's considered like, I'm careful about using the word bourgeois, but like Neeb has been one of the most, I guess, achieved foreigners in the like entirety of StarCraft 2. And he's looking good versus him. And he's got a full-time job and everything. Really, really impressive play from JonSnow.
I think so as well, yeah. He's a very likable guy as well. One of a few North Americans that hang out with like European players as well. And yeah, he takes some influence from that, I'm sure. He actually said that he would take some influence from Laser. This is part of his quote. He said, I'm going to take some influence from a Laser, but it's going to be hard because no one gets as lucky as Miko.
Fair enough. All right, I think that our second game is pretty much just getting underway, and we'll be jumping into it in just a moment's time. Not 100% sure where okay, yeah, there we go. All right, here it is, Cyber Forest. So how do you feel about Cyber Forest, Cats?
You asked me the exact same question yesterday because it's like Cyber Forest. I'm like, how do you feel about Cyber Forest?
Okay, let me ask you this. If you scouted a Protoss, and they had literally made a forest of cybernetics core, how would you feel?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It would be terrifying, I want to say. I don't know. Actually, is Singapore kind of a cyber forest?
Singapore?
I want to say so, no?
In the sense that they have like a lot of cyber like cafes and like just cyber things?
There's a lot of like nature mixed in with you know, like
modern, I see.
Yeah. Buildings, infrastructure.
I haven't been to Singapore.
Me neither. I just watched Planet Earth 2.
Oh, yeah. Heard a lot about...
I think Planet Earth 3 is out. I'm pretty excited to watch it.
Well, we all know that newer is always better, so...
True
that. So I quickly want to note just the small little things. It usually doesn't make a world of difference, but sometimes it occasionally does, where the natural expansion hatchery for JonSnow comes down over by the 3rd, increases drone transfer times, can make it harder to defend against, say, oracles and stuff without the creep spread.
Yeah, also adepts. I mean, it is a pretty standard thing for Protoss players to do. It's a thing that Neeb, I think, attempted at last game as well. So I would like for JonSnow to adapt, maybe be willing to drop a 16 hatchery instead of a 17 hatchery, if that's not already what Neeb is accounting for. Because this is pretty annoying for Zerg. Yeah, we may not see the Protoss player capitalize in terms of damage, but even just the transfer time and the committal to, you know, expanding at your natural, for example, which is something that, you know, everyone would do anyway. But it is pretty annoying.
Yeah. We do have a pretty quick Stargate though. So Neeb, we were talking a bit about this in game number 1. He is one of those players that it's never a surprise to see him do the same thing over and over and over again.
Well, he's a Terran player. He was a Terran player. That's Terran mentality. Yeah, he carried
a lot of that.
Yeah, he carried a lot of the Terran mentality to Protoss. In fact, some of the builds that he popularized, like the Archon drop, was Neeb's at first. He was the first player to really develop it and use it. Yeah,
I didn't know that.
So and that is probably the most standard. I can do this every game Protoss staple build. So yeah, I think it's or it was the word for some nerf now. Yeah, point being, I think that he does take a lot of his Terran approach, or did take a lot of his Terran approach into how he plays Protoss, which is traditionally a trickier, snakier race.
Yeah. No, I think that's a really good way of putting it. And Protoss has always sort of had that reputation as being like the sneaky, got one in on you kind of race. But Neeb has definitely taken a very different approach with a lot of his play, which is what's helped cement him as a very consistent and reliable player.
Yeah, it's pretty rare because Terran really benefits from that since they are the aggressor usually, and the differentiation between players has a lot to do with your speed and ability to like execute. So Terran players can be more repetitive than Zerg and Protoss. Zerg is the best race at reacting because of how the larva mechanic works. But there are Zerg players like, for example, Sandster or to a degree sort of, that will still take like a Terran-y approach to Zerg. Protoss players that take that type of mentality mostly just Neeb, maybe Drogo somewhat.
Yeah, it's hard because I think, especially, there are so many times in Protoss that I think if you're like a little bit off, it's not like you lose a little bit. It's not like you fall a little bit behind. You fall drastically far behind. Like, for example, if you say something like, oh, there's a Terran, I mean, this is not exactly always the perfect example, but if you have a Terran drop or something and you lose like a drop, a medevac with Marines, it can be bad, obviously, but you compare that to, say, like a Protoss player, you lose your Archon, your War Prism, and it's like, oh, this is catastrophic, but you also have a lot more you can get done.
Yeah, exactly. It's a much more expensive...
high risk, high reward.
Yes, indeed. And for example, with the Archon drop, that is one of the things that has the most micro potential in Protoss, right? So that's what that relies on. Whereas Terran units all have pretty high micro potential.
So let me ask you about the +1 melee upgrade that's coming out from JonSnow. We also have that lair starting up and a lot of Zerglings getting made.
This. I think this is a great approach to killing a third. The problem is, how many oracles are there?
I believe there's 3.
Yeah, so this is not going to work. Like, Lings are just not good against oracles. If Neeb is careful, if he sees it coming, then he'll park 1 oracle, maybe 2 at his third, and that's going to kill all the Lings. But if it wasn't this opener, or if it was a Phoenix opening instead, and Neeb hasn't actually seen this, so this could work for JonSnow.
He's only seen the lair. He never saw the evolution chamber. He's seen a lot of Lings being made now.
Oh, if that second oracle had fallen, Neeb would definitely lose the third. But I don't know if JonSnow is... he's going to go for the third.
A lot of sentries over here, and the shield banner is going to help out a lot as well. Actually, even force shields in a lot of these Zerglings. Wow, Neeb punishing JonSnow for this choice.
Yeah, and I gotta say, I mean, JonSnow didn't overcommit to this, and maybe it is because he saw the Oracle opener. Had he committed to this, he would have killed all of those units, and if he had killed the Oracle too, that would have been a great opening for him. But as it stands, I mean, he didn't really commit for it. I assume we're gonna see something like +2 melee, just because it's a natural transition into potentially killing probes with 1 shot with Banelings. But yeah, he's once again in a very difficult spot.
All right, well, Neeb did use a handful of his force fields earlier for that defense, but he's still got plenty left over where that came from. And he's starting his little move out with his sentries, his immortals. And JonSnow, unfortunately for him, he's only got 11 Lings. He's starting up his Hydra production, but his worker count isn't exactly stellar. He has to make units right now to defend, though.
Yeah, and we talked about this. If Neeb had attacked last time whilst the Hydra transition or the numbers weren't great enough, that could have been awful for him. And we might be in that situation. I'm not sure that he's going to have enough Hydras to really deal damage while the Lings buffer.
Yeah. By the way, Hallucinated Immortal inside the army. Now hallucinates a Phoenix as well, but just trying to scare JonSnow. And it really does seem like Neeb is going to be poking around here and there, but he's starting up Charge, he's starting up +1 weapons, he's starting up a Temple Archives. This is more made to scare JonSnow and ensure he has a lot of units being made, not drones.
Even spines are going up, to your point. So yeah, JonSnow is definitely scared, and Neeb definitely had kill potential with his attack, but he is choosing to play it safe. It is a very Neeb approach.
Yep. Gets a revelation off in the main base, sees that the Hydra Den is just there and researching, and not a whole lot else going on. Just more and more units being made. So Neeb says, yep, think I scared you enough, and he retreats home.
Yeah, I mean, that's great for him. It would have been great. It would have been great for him to capitalize. And this kind of trend is something that I feel like JonSnow might be able to adapt to for the upcoming game here, because, you know, like, if Neeb is willing to just move out to scare his opponent and he always plays macro, essentially, that's something that you can definitely abuse and just make a lot of drones.
Oh, yeah, that definitely makes sense. Do want to quickly note that both of the oracles, that's every single oracle, did get picked off there. So JonSnow doesn't have to worry about the revelations anymore for a bit. That is a little bit of a boon, and I was going to say that actually does lead very well into, say, a Lurker Den.
Yeah, and there it is indeed. I mean, Neeb already has a good base number of Immortals. That's going to be most Protoss' preferred choice against the Lurkers. But Lurkers are good in the sense that if you are behind, they're the type of unit that can really do a lot to bring you back into the game. Or if you find a strong siege position, Raynor is fantastic at this, for example, then it's very difficult to break, even if you have the right units or right army comp.
All right, well, the Lurker Den does take quite a while to finish up. In Storm, plus pulling weapons, a lot of these things are going to be finishing up for Neeb. So while that earlier attack may have been a bit of a fake out there, just poking and prodding, seeing if there was something, and then backing off, this next one, I don't know if it's going to be quite the same.
Yeah, we some sauce, they're showing us that Neeb is well aware. What?
Sorry, we some sauce. Every time they get me.
It's his name.
Our wonderful observer, for those who don't know.
Yes, indeed.
You can guess the spelling of his Twitter by the name Aweesome Sauce.
That is correct. Yeah. Whereas if you say awesome sauce, you can't.
Awesome Sauce with 2 E's.
Hey, that's a lot more wording. It's
It is. It's catchy, though.
Awesome sauce with 2 E's is catchy?
Awesome Sauce with 2 E's is catchy. Oh, I actually really quickly want to just say, look at the mini-map, and you just see Neeb actually setting up for these 3 attacks from 3 different angles. He's got the Zealots on the north, the Zealots on the south, and the main army all poking forward. This is a tough spot for JonSnow.
Are expensive too, yeah. Lurkers are being morphed. If JonSnow spots this, he's just gonna, or if Neeb spots this, he's just gonna move in and kill it. Oh, but the Observer is very low. He's gotta be really careful, Neeb. Yeah. These Zealots are just, wrecking havoc here.
Yep, they're holding the line. Remember, those Zealots have +1 weapons, so they are two-shotting those Zerglings.
Just in time are the Lurkers. I'm not sure that Neeb's gonna want to push into that.
Yeah. Zealots are actually just barely outside the range of the Lurkers, but the Lings finally come in. Only 4 workers going down, so actually not too terrible of a defense there for JonSnow.
Yeah, he's actually caught up nicely in supply on the back of this. Neeb was maybe trying to capitalize on that timing, and he wasn't moving particularly fast enough. He wasn't very hasty about, you know, like, oh, I have very little time type thing, but he might find an angle here. Oh, and he spots the entire army of JonSnow. I think this is Neeb's go time.
Yeah, and at this point, you could just force field between the hatchery and those destructible rocks, and there is nothing JonSnow could really do about it at that point. The Lurkers do manage to burrow over here, but there's no buffer for them. So Storms and Immortals to go down over there. There are the force fields I was talking about. He deals with the Ling counter flank. And the Lurkers are going to actually be able to push him back.
The idea from JonSnow, wonderful there, right? Like the Lings made to go around so that it covers the retreat when the units are ideally in front of the Lurkers, or in range of the Lurkers, rather. But unfortunately, Neeb pulls back a little bit before that, and the Link counterattack, the Link force fields essentially don't do their job.
Yeah, Lurkers do manage to burrow with a very nice spread. Only 2 of those Lurkers tagged, by the way, by the Oracle, and more observers also being made. So JonSnow is not going to just get lucky off of, oh, I killed all the detection, so the Lurkers are fine. No, it's going to be a bit tougher of a battle for him.
Yes, indeed.
Those Hydras!
Yeah, Zealots are excellent against Hydras without buffer. No buffer has been the name of the game here, so...
Yeah, it does get a lot of good pot shots off with those Lurkers against the Zealots, but you can see that JonSnow's having a hard time breaking through this kind of center point in the map.
Yeah, and Neeb is positioning accordingly too, right? Like with the double flank, essentially. Now he's gonna go for a recall that I'm not sure I quite like, because when you have your entire army coming from the same choke, that's when Lurkers gain the most power, whereas if you kind of surge the Lurkers and flank from, kind of how he's doing here, flank from multiple areas, then the Lurkers have to spread their shots and don't get to do their full potential in terms of damage.
Yeah, first 3 carriers are now out, 2 more carriers on the way. I think once you get up to 5 or 6 carriers, that is when things gets really, really tough for JonSnow, especially since he's not really setting up another transition point. It is just Hydras, Lings, Lurkers, and go. So he gets into a position where he's attacking the Nexus a bit.
Those Lurkers need to siege a little bit further forward to really apply some pressure, but it seems like Neeb is just going to have to forfeit this, as he is still producing 2 more carriers, and eventually his army is going to be able to beat JonSnow. So this is a very mature decision by Neeb, something that most players learn as they progress through the ladders, but it's a mistake that many newer players or even experienced players tend to make. So, you know, commendations to him. You don't have to save every base. Right now, his win condition essentially is fight against an army that won't have an answer to his.
Yeah, win or lose the battle, but win the war.
Yes, indeed.
And here we're going to see that JonSnow is trying to poke a bit further forward. The Oracle did manage to get some revelations off earlier on, but the Lurkers are clear for now. And actually burrowing in a pretty aggressive position here, and not just hitting the Archons, hitting all the Zealots in the back. There are some Storms coming down. Most of the Lurkers have been dealt with. It's just Hydras versus Archons. And let me tell you something, cats. JonSnow is not a fan of that. GG. Neeb.
Yeah, absolutely not. But at the same time, you know, if you're JonSnow, that's probably what you want to do. You want to push in and apply some sense of urgency to things, because once the carrier transition is fully operational, then there's not much that you can do. You have to invest so very much to get to something that can deal with it.
Yeah, I mean, we even saw JonSnow in game number 1 where he did try and cut a lot of the corners. He got to the later game, and he had a lot more tech available, and he still struggled to deal with it in that situation.
Yeah,
so.
and he did a good job of even trading his lower tier tech for Neeb's lower tier tech, right? So he had a potential there, but here he would have had to start right there and then. It's a little late when already 5 carriers are out.
Yeah, very tough spot now for JonSnow as he's sitting down 0-2 versus Neeb. He did look pretty good in game number 1, and he showed some glimmers of, you know, promise in game number 2, but it's still a 2-0 lead now for Neeb. This is still looking like it might just be history repeating itself.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of build orders this time around, JonSnow didn't pick the right one. And in terms of build orders in the first map, JonSnow picked an absolutely brilliant build order to counter Neeb's. He had a huge advantage on that regard, but Neeb, regardless, coming out well on top. So let's hope that JonSnow, you know, if he's going to be tricky, and he is a tricky player, you know, that he gets kind of a little bit luckier with with his strategy choice here.
Absolutely. I remember back in the day, JonSnow kind of wore out this this little nickname, but he used to be sort of like the low drone king because he just cut workers a bit earlier on, like 5 to 8
No
workers.
Regret would have something to say about that.
No, okay, no regret. No regret is like, oh, and all other Zerg players are cutting at 48. I'll cut at 16. JonSnow was like, oh, other Zerg players are cutting at 48. I'll cut at like 42.
Oh, sure.
And then he'll flood out and hit like 15 seconds earlier, and all the players they'd face off against were just like, whoa, wait, you're not, why are you here this early? I'm not ready yet. I'll be ready in like 10 seconds.
Or with more units even, right? Like, yeah,
so
it's
a little bit sneaky in that sense, but he still has some semblances of that every so often.
Yeah, he mixes it up a lot too. I actually had the wrong impression of JonSnow, I think, from CvZ that I play against him. Like, he doesn't tend to mix it up as much. But in other matchups that I've been observing throughout the course of this challenger, he's been very, very varied.
Diverse, yeah.
Diverse, yeah.
It's always really funny because I always imagine, or like I hear from pro players who are like, they form a lot of opinions about other players on the ladder or something, or like in the matches that they play. And it's always really interesting to hear like the different opinions of someone from like different players who face them. Because there are some players who have like a particular playstyle. Like, for example, if you ever talk to Puck and ask him about his opinion on various different players, it's a little less so these days because I think he's more closer to standard. But like Puck had a very unique playstyle, right?
Yeah.
So when he would ask about his opinion on, say, like Starkiller, who are all these other players, it's like he would have a different stance because they'd play differently against him as well.
Right.
So that plus like I know also matchups. It's always really interesting to hear like how people come to the opinions they have of people.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in terms of approach, I don't think that people really change that much. Like, I think that you can see a lot of personality reflected in the game to how people operate in real life.
Yeah.
So I think that on that regard, yes. I think JonSnow is the type of person that's you know, willing to explore and to be very varied and diverse, like you said. But in CvC, for example, I don't get to see that because, you know, CvC is not the best matchup for that. Yeah.
I do love that you said that though, because I think one of the coolest things about StarCraft to me is that there is a degree of expression of yourself. You do see a lot of personality of players in their gameplay.
Absolutely, yeah. You really, like, if you play against someone for enough games, you kind of feel like you get to know their approach really well, like how they operate. To a good degree, and also their capacity in terms of like their decision making or what they're it's pretty great. It's a very, very deep game on that regard.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite things about StarCraft. I'm so glad that you share the same opinion.
Yeah, of course. Not so much an opinion, in my opinion.
Fair enough. We've got another Stargate opening. So speaking of playstyles, Neeb, standard, tried, and true, going for another one of those. And I wouldn't be that surprised if we ended up seeing another 3 Oracle opening or something from Neeb, because he is one of those, if it ain't broke, don't fix it kind of players.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Now, what I would like to see from JonSnow is something to try to account for the fact that that's what Neeb has been doing. I don't think Neeb has applied pressure, for example, much with Adepts either. So, oh, there's the one Adept, but no follow-up. There's a Stalker to deny information. I think that's been rather common for Neeb. So I would have loved to see him, for example, JonSnow that is like cut link speed or the Overlord speed for that matter, right? Like he's gonna scout and he's gonna see the same thing that he always sees. In fact, the link is gonna scout, and I really want to see him cancel the Overlord speed now.
Oh yeah, there it is. Hey, nice job. Yeah. JonSnow, all right, gonna save a few extra resources there. We'll see where he decides to invest that extra gas and minerals he just banked up a bit, and he should now know, yeah, Phoenix opening, and there's going to be the Oracles almost always following that up.
Yes, indeed. So, yeah, third base for JonSnow. I mean, he has always, or he has also been, even though he's opened different ways and he's gotten there in different ways, he has gone for more or less the same army composition against Neeb. So, and it makes sense because, again, Neeb is not a very aggressive player. So if you cut down on roaches, many Protoss players will just kill you. Neeb probably won't. So going straight to Hydras is a good thing, but then you have to find the power peak of that army composition before Neeb is able to get the things like Storm out, or carriers for that matter.
Yeah. It also is going to be very interesting to see how he managed to do that on King's Cove, because this is one of those maps where those 3 bases very easy to take. And the 4th base is where maybe things start getting a little bit dicier. So if JonSnow can try and hit that timing with those Hydras that we were talking about, I mean, this might actually be a nice map for him, maybe.
Absolutely. If Neeb takes the forward 4th, that would be one of the best locations to ever hit with Hydra main.
All right, Sport Crawler finishes up and gets some extra pot shots off on that Oracle, but the Oracle still survives, and we don't actually have a second Oracle. It's just a couple of extra Phoenix coming out and a second Stargate as well, so Neeb mixing it up.
Yeah, he's gonna go for Mass Phoenix is what it looks like here as an opener. And this is kind of a surprising choice because of what JonSnow has been doing in gravitating quickly to the Hydras, but unfortunately for him, this time he's going Roaches.
Man.
So, yeah, that's a little bit unlucky, honestly, as Neeb has his mental number, I guess.
Yeah. It's so funny. It goes back to the whole, these guys have played against each other so many times. Almost every single season of Challenger. I think the last season was maybe the only season in recent times that they didn't play each other. They played each other every single season of last year of Challenger. They played each other in WCS Spring. Neeb has a pretty good idea of what JonSnow and the kind of likes to do and the sort of style that he likes to go for. So this is going to be a bit frustrating for Jared.
Yeah, even what you might revert to when you're down 0-2, Neeb has probably seen JonSnow down 0-2 more than anyone else ever.
A little bit of a sad way of thinking about it, but you're right. That is probably true.
Yeah, I mean, intuitively, he probably feels like, maybe not Hydras, you know?
Yeah. Well, the Phoenix have definitely been revealed now, so JonSnow is just going to try and do what a lot of Zerg players like to do in this kind of situation, and just drone through it. Get up your spores and just try and make more drones than you're losing.
Yeah, great micro by Neeb.
Not really losing any of the Phoenix so far. Only 2 drones actually going down thanks to those Phoenix right there.
Yeah, but a lot of Overlords is what he was focusing on.
Yeah, that's true. Now the Roaches are actually out, and what are they going to do?
Nothing. And those Roaches have no potential to be morphed into Ravagers against Phoenixes, as you would just be feeding twice the amount of resources and a lot of gas.
Yeah.
So yeah, JonSnow is now dropping the Hydra, then that's sad face for him, right?
Yeah, I mean, I just imagine, like, the idea of a Ravager Corrosive Bile hitting Phoenix is just so absurd to me.
Yeah, I mean, if there's very few Phoenixes, it's easy to get the one that's grabbing the unit. But yeah, like Ravagers against Phoenixes in general, pretty bad because they're so very expensive and Phoenixes are great at killing them.
Yeah. Well, the Hydras, this is the other annoying thing about going for the Hydras, is that when there are this many Phoenix, there's that moment of vulnerability while the Hydras pop out, the first wave, and you're just, they're not actually all together because they're popping out from all the different hatcheries. There's like 3 Hydras versus 15 Phoenix. You're like, actually, the Protoss
Phoenix will go down. Nice.
Okay.
Now, second Phoenix.
Yeah, not bad. Trading out a lot of
resources lost tab. I wish I'm on top of it before I said anything.
Oh my god. 2 Phoenix in exchange for quite a few drones and a lot of other Zerg units.
Yeah, indeed.
Well, Well, this is the time where Neeb can just kind of chill back over there. He knows he's keeping JonSnow all the way back at home, so his 4th base is very safe to establish, even on such a low gateway count.
Extremely so. JonSnow needs a critical mass of Hydras to even attempt at moving across the map, but by then, Neeb will already probably have Storm and Charge most definitely researched.
All right, a couple Lings poking their way forward. Neeb gonna warp in a few more Zealots, but he's got Charge on the way, +1 weapons, Psy Storm. He is gonna be looking really, really strong on the ground in about a minute to minute and a half. It is about what JonSnow can do about these Phoenix in the meanwhile and eventually find the opportunity to try and move out. Actually, would you even want to see JonSnow move out, or is this just one of those like turtle up and get ready for the big ground attack?
Probably at this point, yeah, just drop an infestation pit, start working on those infestors, hope you don't get attacked, and there's the infestation pit. So yeah, just now make a lot of drones, hope you don't get attacked, take your 4th base, hope you don't get attacked.
It's kind of tough too, because when your opponent, with the double Stargate opening going for the Phoenix, you get +1 air weapons. And +1 air weapons leads very nicely with the double Stargate into drop a Fleet Peak and go into the carrier transition even faster with better upgrades.
Yeah, absolutely. It's gonna be a rough one. It's gonna be a rough one indeed. I really feel bad because JonSnow would have had the answer to the Phoenixes in the previous 2 games, right? He went straight for the Hydralisk then, whereas this time he made it reactively when there's Phoenix already on his side of the map, and this is the end result of that. Neeb is very comfortable back at home with the High Templars. There is just no openings whatsoever for JonSnow in the near future.
Yeah, poor JonSnow. It's not over yet, but it's looking very likely that this might turn the 1-in-22 series score they have against each other to a 1-in-23 series score.
Yeah, that reminds me of my series score against Kelasur.
What's that?
It looked something like that.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah. It looked something in games alone. I think it was like 3-18 or something like that.
Oh God.
Yeah.
That's
nifty, nifty Diego. Well, he knew me very well too.
Yeah?
It didn't help. Yeah, you will live together, so it really didn't help my case. But he was just such a great multitasker. I never could keep up.
That's so interesting. I would have thought that. I guess actually he also then he gets to know you very well and your kind of tricks and shenanigans, because I think you're also a very crafty player.
Yeah.
So I guess.
I mean, I did eventually defeat him in my last. I guess I want to say like one of my last tournament runs as I had already kind of stopped playing, but I kind of came back, and in that particular event I actually took a game from him, a game from Neeb, and a game from Scarlet. But I lost every series. But I was so very happy with that.
You just retired and it was like never again.
And it was like cool games, you know, like it was like really cool strategies. But yeah, Diego is beast.
He is.
So you will probably see him around as well at Montreal. And he also, I believe, is in Korea. A lot of players in Korea practicing for this. We're going to see a few of them today too.
Yeah, I believe he's, I could be wrong about this, but I believe he's already qualified through WCS Challenger for Latin America, so the Copa America stuff. But
yeah, I don't know how many people qualify, but it's always
I think it's top
major and either Kelasur or Cham.
Yeah. Quickly on this game, I do want to note, of course, the Phoenix did get sacrificed out, but Neeb was just freeing up supply for more of these carriers. He's continuing to take more bases. He's looking super strong. JonSnow is starting to get out some of those infestors, and he did get a pathogen gland, so they're going to have some energy available. Yep. But this is still a really, really tough battle ahead of him.
Definitely. He needs a ton of infestors. He needs static defense. I mean, he has a good number of Hydra Bane. So once he gets maxed, he can start that transition. Neeb is going to look to reset perhaps.
This is, okay, a little bit of a dangerous move out there for Neeb. He has a lot of Zealots on the left-hand side, and Zealots moving over to the Greater Spire.
Nasty, nasty. Oh, but he actually wasn't paying attention. Won't end up getting the Greater Spire. No cancel on that hatchery either. They will end up getting the Greater Spire. Never mind.
Yeah. If Neeb does lose a lot of these big carrier units with High Templars, that could maybe be a way that JonSnow makes something happen, but he's got to do this now.
Yeah, JonSnow got a great fungal on all of the High Templars, unfortunately unable to follow through, and that's because there's no buffer for those infestors, as the rest of his army was going for the Zealot run by. So
yeah, 3 infestors already died. He has 6 more about to pop in a moment to join with the other remaining 3, but Neeb is about to pop out 3 more carriers, a Dark Shrine getting close to finishing, and the Mothership finally starting up.
Yes, indeed. This is looking very, very difficult. Especially, let's remember, it's the patch just recently happened. Infestors are not what they used to be against Z Carrier, as one of their most important tools in the infested terrain is no longer as viable.
Do you feel like, because okay, a lot of these Hydras actually just going to go down over here trying to snipe off that base, but I was going to say, we were talking about how carriers are one of the best units for scaling with weapon upgrades, but actually on the converse, they also downscale some of the worst with your opponent getting armor upgrades. So
yeah,
I know that typically these days you don't actually see a lot of Carapace upgrades from Zerg players, but do you feel like with the kind of coming back of carriers, we might see more of those upgrades, those Carapace upgrades?
As far as Corruptors are concerned, yes, absolutely. Corruptors, I think, in my opinion, Corruptors are great with Carapace upgrades both against carriers and battle cruisers if you're looking to fight them head on.
Yeah.
Now, the attack upgrade will be better in my opinion if you're not, like, if you're looking for abducts or to isolate some of those units or to get pickoffs. Then you usually want the attack upgrade to make sure you're one or two shotting them.
All right.
So it really comes down to what upgrade you get and how consistent you are with its use, rather than which one is better. On the ground, Carapace, no, I mean, Storm will just kill anything on the ground.
That's very true. We did see some nice DT harassment coming out from Neeb. Even though it only kills a few workers, it does draw JonSnow out of position and allows Neeb to clean up some creep.
You know what would actually be pretty good? What would actually be pretty good that we don't really see? Some Ultralisks. Ultralisk would be good with Carapace.
Because chitinous plating, and also they don't die to storms. Yeah, you could actually get on top of the High Templars theoretically with that.
Yeah, Lambo, Mini Racer, myself, like a few people over time have done like a few Ultras in front, and then like something like a Hydra backbone with Neural Parasite. So the idea there would be to push back the ground army, especially if it's like immortal-less, like this army is, and zone out the High Templars. Yeah, this is Ogre, all but Ogre.
A couple of fungals going down, and some nice Neural Parasites coming in from the back with so many feedbacks. Have drained those infestors of energy. All of those infestors on the north side that were neuroparasiting get taken out, and the Hydras are just not in high enough numbers to make the magic happen. JonSnow taps out. GG. Neeb takes another 3-0 series against JonSnow.
Yeah, just looking extremely strong, convincing. JonSnow not able to punch back. Started off strong with, you know, recovering from a difficult position in game one, but not able to make something or anything happen since. So. Yeah. Jonathan Snow will be eliminated.
Well, unfortunate for JonSnow, but I know that he is probably still planning to attend WCS Montreal, even though he didn't make top 4 for this event. So, looking forward to seeing more of him, and congratulations to Neeb being our first semi-finalist. With that being said, though, ladies and gentlemen, that is only our first match of the day. We have so much more StarCraft headed our way in just a little bit. Of course, our next match as we take a look is going to be one that I am insanely excited for. This actually might have been the second most exciting match to me that I see in this round of 8 lineup. Puck versus Future. These guys always have a fun series. Whether you think it's going to be a 3-0, a 3-2, whatever, it's always going to be a fun one. So don't go anywhere. We'll be back with more WCS NA Challenger.